Hello everybody, welcome to the Boxing Science Podcast. This is sponsored by Saga Fitness. These are specialists in blood flow restriction training. If you're wanting any more information about blood flow restriction training, visit the link in the description where we've got a full article and video workshop on this. And also, if you're wanting to get your hands on some Saga Fitness BFR cuffs, the link is in the description, and also use discount code Boxing Science to save 10% discount on the upper, lower body and the bundle of both cuffs. Today in this podcast, I'm joined by Dr. Alan Ruddock, fellow co-founder of Boxing Science. How are you, Alan?
Very well, thank you.
Good stuff. Today we're going to be answering your questions. Last episode were mainly the questions that I could answer on my own, strength and conditioning wise, and then I've left some other questions that I want to have a good conversation with Alan about, some around sports science, physiology, and just some general conversations about how we've set up Boxing Science and kind of what inspires us going forward. So Alan, first question from Jordan Webster. I saved this one for you because I want to have a good conversation about it. Is the most physically gifted, who are the most physically gifted athletes you've had come through the Boxing Science program for the following: power, strength and fitness? And he's asked to share some numbers
as well,
if you're okay.
It's a good question, this one. We've got some good questions this episode, and this one's one of them. So thank you, Jordan. So we had a little chat about this off air, didn't we? And we weren't always thinking of the same athletes, were we? So should we start with power?
Yeah.
So I'll go with based upon just talent, someone who's walked in the gym before with no consistent history of strength training, and just being able to pop up, 50 centimeter plus counter movement jumps, which is by our standards a very good counter movement jump, isn't it? And that is Lee Wood. I just think,
WBA featherweight world champion.
Yep. I just think, physically, so much talent, so much potential. Yeah. And I think that's shining through now in recent performances, isn't it? So, always been, impressed by Lee's athletic ability.
Yeah. Naturally explosive.
Naturally, yeah. Always scored well on our tests.
Yeah. He's been doing more strength and conditioning now. He's down with Ben Davidson at MTK Performance Centre, and you can see some of the lifts that he's doing. That's what you'd expect from somebody that's been doing strength conditioning, heavy lifting for years and years. Like you were doing I think you were doing at least 5-6 reps on 35 kilos in each hand on the dumbbell chest press, doing probably double his body weight on trap bar deadlift. I remember him coming in when Leo was training, and he just lifted whatever Leo was lifting without no warm up or whatever, and I had to tell him to stop lifting without a warm up. But he just had that natural power, strength, and speed. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing his fight. It's great to see him after all the setbacks, all the years that's been putting in the gym. We've known Lee for over 10 years now, and to see him kind of get this success now and be world champion and be in a massive fight that everybody's talking about against Michael Conlan on March 12th. It's great to see. It's great to see. Some things that come to my head in terms of fitness. Jordan Gill at the minute is the fittest on the program, all round fitness, because there's different kinds of fitness. Jamie and Gav McDonnell were the ultra endurance athletes when he was doing 4 minutes on, 2 minutes off in the heat at 19 kilometers an hour. Kieran just did his UKSA case study, was saying about Sultan doing 16 kilometers an hour, and his assessor was really impressed and asked whether them numbers were real. And Kieran was just like, yeah. And then he asked me was that really good from Sultan? I'm like, yeah, it's really good, but it's not the best, what we've seen. The best were Gav doing 19 in the heat as well. So that kind of fitness. And then Jordan hitting 19 kilometers an hour on the lactate profile, something that we haven't seen before. And his lactate weren't even that high. When we first tested him, I looked at his previous lactate profiles, I think he was getting to about 15 or 16 in lactates of 7 millimole per litre. And I think his, off the top of my head, he's only hitting about 5 or 6 at 19. So there's a massive shift in his physiology there. Anything else that comes to mind in terms of fitness?
One thing to note, Jordan, is that he was okay. His fitness was okay. It wasn't the best. It was just pretty much standard for the Ingle gym when he first started working with us. Yeah. But just through consistency and hard work, smart training over a number of years, he's now got to that level where he's broken all the records that we've got. Yeah.
And like Jordan probably wouldn't be able to do what Gav did on 4 minutes on, 2 minutes off in the heat at 19 kilometers an hour, but then he's able to do the 30-second max out sprints with the top speed and least decay, be able to push himself to the highest lactates.
It's more versatile, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what we train as well.
Muscle buffering capacity, fantastic.
So we train that versatility and adaptability. And that's what training the adaptations, and that is our philosophy. That's what enables boxers to be versatile and adaptable in different situations. Yeah. Rather than just being focused on one thing and making that your strength and super strength. Yeah, he does have those, but he's also got the variety as well.
And then Lerone, fantastic athlete, very explosive, lower body, trap bar deadlifting, well above 2.2, 2.3 times his body weight now with ease. So that he's pound for pound strongest on the program. Two others that I'm going to mention that are on the program that I'm really excited about. Hopi Price. He has got that natural spring and natural speed, lower body, hand speed is fantastic. And now he's getting the strength, the man strength, as they call it. But it's like he's jumping 52.9 centimeters. That's a 12% increase from the last training camp. The last time we did testing with him, his RSI is improved by 19%. So he came into the program really springy and really explosive, but now we've added that strength that we're making big improvements. But then on the YouTube channel the other day, we put up his load velocity profile and we showed how he compared to the Boxing Science average. He's still below that average in terms of strength. So once we keep building these blocks, because it's going to be harder for Hopi because of his stature, long arms, long legs. It's not like short and stocky, but the lifters build. So he's going to find it harder to get stronger. But once he gets that strength, which we're seeing now, add it to the natural spring that he's got, is going to be some athlete. And I'm seeing the changes now. Amazing, and I'm looking forward to these next 2 fights that he's got.
So I hope he's 22, isn't he?
Yeah, still 21, 22 soon.
22 soon, yeah. So I was listening to 5 Live boxing podcast the other day, and Steve Bunce were talking about man strength. Yeah. He was talking about Dennis McCann and how traveller communities sometimes get their man strength earlier than other communities. Yeah. So maybe Opie's coming into his man strength phase now. Yeah.
We've got Stephen Cairns, 19 years old. He is naturally explosive, again, hitting over 50 centimetre counter movement jumps. RSI hitting about 3 RSI, which is excellent for boxers. And then his strength, he can already lift 2 times his body weight on trap bar deadlift. He's only been on the program for a few months. Upper body pressing is lifting 35 kilos. 19 years old. Yeah. So where's he going to be when he gets his man strength?
Irish strength.
Yeah, Irish strength. Yeah. So yeah, Stephen, fantastic athlete. And then got to mention when we worked with Kell Burke, Keith Galahad, these were like all rounders. They were 8 or 9 out of 10 on every single aspect, and the ability to to grind through the weeks and the commitment and everything was something special.
Yeah. Some of their training weeks were really, really tough weeks, and that, you know, that ability to just dig in and get it done. I remember Kel saying the hardest part of his day was getting out of bed. And he said when he got out of bed, he knew he could get through the day. But he was, you know, fit. When we got him fit, he could be, you know, challenge anyone. Just naturally strong as well. Again, he
held the curve record for years. Until we got a new curve, and then everybody beat it. He was on the old curve, which was
like a tank,
just so hard to move, and nobody beat it until they went in the heat. And they were doing sprints in the heat. But nobody beat that. And like I say, he could do that. He could lift strong, but he didn't do strength and conditioning for a couple of years. And then when I trained him for the Golovkin fight, it was the weights that he was able to lift within a few weeks, that muscle memory. It was just I couldn't believe how naturally strong he was.
And his landmine punch throws as well.
Landmine punch.
Dangerous.
So the landmine punch throw is a test that you'll have seen quite a lot on across our social media channels. And we was playing with the idea. Me and Ash Downing were playing with the idea in the gym at Hallam, and I were catching Ash Downing's. The next one that I caught was Kel Brooks, 10 days out from a fight, 20 kilo Olympic lifting bar, threw it at me, and I think it was about 4.6 meters per second, which is just phenomenal, really. And his trajectory, in terms of his speed, was more than a heavyweight. On his, because we used to do the load velocity profile on the landmine punch from 20 kilos, 25, and then we could predict his max force, his speed at 0 kilos, and he matched a heavyweight. So he were really good for that all round strength, speed, power, fitness, and then that ability to grind it out during camp. Dom Ingle always calls it the X factor, and you kind of see that in different athletes. And his ability, when I was on camp with him for the Golovkin fight, a few things started going wrong. We started getting a little bit run down, and because it was the biggest fight that I've been involved with, and I was relatively inexperienced then, I started panicking about it, and Dom was just it'll be all right. Just give him a few days off, get him work, start building him up. He went away from doing the high intensity runs, the high intensity, the heavy lifting and stuff like that. Just did some low intensity stuff, doing some kind of bodybuilding stuff weights, and just getting his body moving. And then in a few days, he was fine and back to normal, and being able to grind it out. And I learned a lot from working with Kel and from working with Dom as well, and being in that environment. Okay, so we're picking this back up after the vacuum cleaner got involved. I actually answered this in the last Q&A, so you can see all these questions that I'm saving for you. So this is from Darren Michaels, and the reason why I saved this is because he's asked the top 3 pieces of equipment that a new strength and conditioning coach should be purchasing, in terms of lab equipment, stuff like that. And I decided to answer it from a strength point of view, saying about my jump app, accelerometer, and the Target Fitness blood flow restriction cuffs. I wanted to ask you, Alan, from a physiology standpoint, easy for me to say, which are the 3 things that people should be looking to purchase?
Definitely a heart rate monitor, Bluetooth heart rate monitor, if possible. They're not expensive at all. Basic ones are about £35–40. You can get more expensive ones that give you a bit more detail. That detail really is not for boxers and coaches, really doesn't give us anything extra. It doesn't really change our practice at all. It's stuff around ground contact time, stride length, that kind of stuff. It's not stuff that we really look at. So basic heart rate monitor, paired to any heart rate app,
Yeah.
we like to use Polar Beat.
Yeah, Polar Beat.
Because we're very simple.
Yeah.
We like the color coding on the Polar Beat. And
see, I see some of them, and it's like so hard to work out.
Yeah, just keep these things, keep it simple.
Yeah.
And then you can make quick decisions.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, make quick, informed decisions.
Yeah.
You know, and then you can make sure your training's optimized because of that. So, Wahoo, we've never had any problems with Wahoo.
Wahoo ticker. You've got the Polar H10 and H7.
H10, H7, and the OH1.
Which sits on the arm, which is fantastic for boxers.
And there's another Polar armband too, and Wahoo doing armband.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the armband is good because it's quite versatile for boxing. Sometimes boxers don't like wearing heart rate monitors whilst they're sparring. Tight sensation and maybe getting hit on it. But don't they have any problems when they actually wear a heart rate monitor during sparring? But to save them from that kind of uncomfortable feeling whilst they're sparring, having it on their arm is really good.
Most watches, sports watches now have optical sensors in them.
Yeah.
Don't trust them.
No.
Lie.
Good.
They're not good enough.
No.
They're just not good enough.
And now they log the data, and now they actually share the data as well. Like you see heart rate trends and calories and stuff like that, but we want to see how much time is spent over 80% max heart rate, 90% max heart rate. Yeah,
I mean, you can do that with the Polar Beat app.
Yeah.
It's great. And the other thing that's good with that is that you can create a cloud account.
Yeah.
So you can push that online. So all your training is stored online.
Yeah.
So
me and Lee work together with a few athletes, and we log into their Polar Beat.
Yeah.
And we see kind of what their boxing sessions look like. If we've set remote conditioning, we can have a look instead of us having like badgering them for screenshots and everything. We can actually look in.
Yeah. So definitely. It doesn't matter if you've got a Wahoo Bluetooth heart rate monitor using the Polar.
Yeah.
They don't know.
That is a thing, because like you think that if you're using Polar Beat, you need to use a Polar heart rate monitor, but the Wahoo actually links up. So we have Wahoo heart rate monitors here.
Yeah. Polar make it easy for us to do that. So thank you, Polar.
Conflict of interest between the two there.
Sometimes you've got to make it work, haven't you? You've got to try and make it as simple as possible, and that's the simplest way that we found. Just happens to work that way.
Cool. So that's number one.
Number one, we have a very expensive lactate analyzer here.
The Bison.
But we also have used portable lactate analyzers. So they cost about £300, something like that, and about £2 per single test. So much more affordable than the thousands of pounds that we have paid for the Bison. But we take so much lactate information anyway, so much data, that it becomes more economical for us over time. But if you only take in data every now and again, or you're taking it in a test, that outlay becomes a lot more economical for the individual, especially if you can build it into the cost of testing as well. That's just going to give you an insight into that magnitude of acidosis that you're looking for when you're doing muscle buffering sessions, or if you want to do a lactate profile to get an objective standardized test and look at changes in fitness. They're going to give you some good insights there.
Yeah. Like when we were looking at like whether to get the Bison or the Lactate Pro 2, we accounted for the cost of the consumables. So the Bison is obviously more expensive for us, but at the same time the consumables were less, and how much we use the Bison, it actually worked out cheaper in the long run, because on Lactate Pro 2, each consumable costs about £2, and maybe it might have gone up more. Everything's going up. Everything's going up. So we worked it out that over a year we'd have matched how we've used the Lactate Pro 2 to the Bison, and obviously we'd have to spend a lot more in the following year. And I think, to be honest, I think we've used the Bison a lot more this year because it's been there. We've used it on circuits. We've used it on every 30-second max out sprint session, every muscle buffering session. This is something that we weren't doing when we were at the university. So we are using it a lot more. So like if we were to use Lactate Pro 2, I think we'd have gone bankrupt. But if you're going to use Lactate Pro 2, you've got to work out how much he's charging for your session. You can't just go willy-nilly and just start taking somebody's lactate, charging them £40, but you've spent £30 in consumables for that session. You've got to use it quite strategic. So if you're wanting to do a lactate profile and you can charge more for doing sports science testing and work consumables into that cost, I think that is the best way to use the Lactate Pro 2. For muscle buffering sessions, maybe don't measure it as often as we do. Maybe do 2 or 3 assessments. We normally do it after every third rep on the repeated sprints, or after every rep on the 2 minutes or 3 minutes off.
Don't do it every session.
Yeah.
So get an idea of lactate in that session.
Yeah.
And then do another 2 or 3 sessions and then come back and test it again.
Yeah.
And use RPE.
Well, that's what we do with our remote athletes that come in. Fabio Wardley, he's on a muscle buffering block. Well, all of this camp because he's a heavyweight. So I set him, the first time he came up, we did 2 minutes on, 3 minutes off on the air bike. I knew exactly what I should be doing these sessions for the next 3 weeks. Yeah. So then I set him some targets, and after a few weeks, I know that it's going to create some adaptation. So let's go a little bit harder. So I set him a higher target in a few weeks. He's coming this weekend, doing 12 seconds on, 48 off. Get the wattage, and it was so insightful, really, because like you normally go for about 90% of the max watts, and thing is, Fabio is so explosive. He's hitting like over 2,000 watts in his warm up, and without really like needing to push there. And then we went like way below. We went to about 70% of his max output, and bang, it muscle buffering. So it was so important for us, because I'd have just gone, go 90%, go to 1800, 90, or something like that. And what he'll done, he'll just been in no man's land, just beating himself up for no reason on it. So it was so vital. So that's something that you can do with Lactate Pro 2. Analyze it, set the speeds and the intensities that you need, and then in a few weeks' time, assess like how they're moving forward. So so that's heart rate monitor, Lactate Pro 2.
I've got one more. We've
spent £440 so far.
Okay, so the next one. So do you know when the first stopwatch was made? Oh, you don't?
No.
That's a loaded question, isn't it?
You've been reading.
It was in the 1800s. It was made by a French watchmaker called Louis Monet. And he wasn't interested in timing things, sport, anything like that, because sport wasn't a thing in the 1800s, was it? But astronomy was. So they were plotting phases of the moon, for example, and like charting planets and all that kind of stuff. So that's when the first stopwatch was made.
Okay.
And because we take so much data here and we're always recording it, I thought, somebody has got to have made a Bluetooth. We've got Bluetooth heart rate monitors. There must be a Bluetooth stopwatch. So if I'm taking a time of something, I can essentially create a log of all those times for a particular session.
Right.
And then that data would then get transmitted to an app, just like a heart rate monitor. Yeah. So we're still basically using the same stopwatch as we were 200 years ago.
But on an iPod, iPhone.
So the problem with like doing it on your iPhone or doing it on your iPad,
doesn't log.
It doesn't log.
Yeah.
So I found an app
Yeah.
On that, you can download, I think it were about £3, something like that, that you can use your volume buttons to start and take your split times. Yeah. It logs your split times, and then you can export it. You can send it to WhatsApp, or you can email it to yourself, or you can download it to your phone as a comma separated value file, so you could analyze it in Excel. So that is the other thing that I would say is find the app, which I forgot the name of, stopwatch app.
Great recommendation, this, mate.
Or create a Bluetooth stopwatch.
Yeah.
To analyze the data, but just a stopwatch.
Yeah.
As well.
Interval timer's good. On
seconds timer's quite good.
Yeah. But is it just called interval time, that website that we did the Red Zone runs on?
No, it's called Seconds.
Seconds.
So Seconds, yeah. So you can load in a interval session in there, but you can only load in the time, so it only tells you when to run or stop or rest. It doesn't time. It doesn't say, well, if you're out running, and you've got and you're on the track, for example, and you want to know what your rep time is for 200 meters. Yeah. It will only give you the time, so you'll only be running, 300, not 300, but you might be running a certain amount of distance, but it's not going to tell you that in the app. So you want to stopwatch that really records time over a particular distance.
Cool. So we've got, in your top 3, we've got heart rate monitor, portable lactate analyzer, a stopwatch. Next question is from Adam Lusby, aka Enhanced Sports Performance. Have you looked into the Moxie monitor? If so, what are your thoughts?
Not the Moxie monitor specifically, but we have used near infrared spectroscopy in research before. So
my favourite word,
spectroscopy.
No, I can't say that.
So I've published quite a few papers where I've used NIRS. That's the abbreviation. You could say NIRS, mate. That'll do, won't it?
NIRS. Easy. Yorkshire accent.
So the one of the papers that were published in European Journal of Applied Physiology was looking at whether or not the technology changes dependent upon skin blood flow. So if anyone's not familiar with this piece of technology, it's basically, it emits different wavelengths of light into the muscle, through the skin, through the dermis, through the muscle, and then tries to capture what is happening in terms of oxygenation, deoxygenation, hemoglobin status, we'll call it, within that localized area. And it does that by emitting different wavelengths of light, and then the amount of light that is either scattered or absorbed is proportional to the metric that it's trying to calculate. So it assesses things like muscle oxygen saturation, total hemoglobin, deoxy hemoglobin, I think, as well. So it gives us an insight into what's happening at the periphery from an O2 metabolic perspective. What we found is that yes, there is in some metrics there is an interference when you get hot on your skin, and in others there isn't. But this was done probably about 12 years ago now that we did this, and we also did it with a lab-based system. I also tried to use it in my PhD, so I've got a great picture of Gary Hutt. Wearing
GB boxing strength conditioning coach.
Gary was he did some pilot testing for me, so I've got him in the lab. He's wearing NIRS around his leg. He's got ECG electrodes on his chest to look at cardiac hemodynamics, which didn't work. He's got skin blood flow sensors on his arm. He's got skin temperature sensors on various different aspects. He's got a heart rate monitor on. He's got a mouthpiece in so I can collect his expired air, and he just looks like a cyborg. And I'm getting him there doing recumbent cycling in the heat and looking at his physiological responses. I've also got a temperature intestinal temperature monitoring there as well. So
it was like a little tablet that
pill,
you had 24 hours before.
Yeah.
And then you had to basically have it in you.
Yeah. So I've got in your intestine, it works its way to intestines, and then you can assess temperature from there. So I had all this stuff going on. So I tried to use it in my PhD, but it didn't really give me the insight that I wanted it to give me. So I ended up not using it in any of the further studies or any publications. But what I would say in terms of the use of muscle O2 saturation is that I've not seen any information, any way in which it can help us in prescription of training yet.
Yeah, and that's the main thing as well.
That's the main thing.
Whenever I ask you about like tests or anything like that, you always say, how's it going to influence your training?
Yeah.
How are the results going to influence your training? And I'm like,
yeah.
And like with the tests that we do, counter movement jump, squat jump, RSI, load velocity profile, they all influences what kind of training that athlete does.
Yeah.
And that, like, even though that it can give you some information, it's like, what are you going to do? How's that going to influence your training? Yeah, you might improve it when you next test it, but it's like, you need to be able to, each test has to give you information to influence your
practice.
Training. Yeah.
Otherwise, so what?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're wasting your time. Just like we're saying, you've got to be economical with your costs. If you're, looking to use field-based equipment, you've got to be economical with your time and your data as well. Mm-hmm. So if that data is not informing your practice, why are you assessing it? It's fine as the description. This is what we've always done in sports sciences. We've got athletes in, tested them. There's your VO2 max. Go away, do a training program, come back.
Yeah.
Oh, your VO2 max has gone up.
That's a key one, VO2 max. And this isn't a question, just whilst we're on the subject, why do we prefer doing a lactate profile compared to doing a VO2 max?
Because that lactate profile allows us to prescribe training, enables us to establish training zones. It's also an objective test because it's a fixed intensity trial, whereas a VO2 max test is a self-paced trial, so you can choose when you want to terminate that test.
Yeah.
Just like on the 30-15 test, you can choose when to terminate it.
Yeah.
So in a way, your attainment of aerobic capability, VO2 max,
it's limited by...
is influenced by your perception.
Yeah.
So if you're not having a really good day, then you're probably going to stop exercising.
And it's the way that you do it as well. Obviously, boxers are more wanted to running. So if you're going to do VO2 max test on a bike, you're not going to like kind of overstimulate the boxer to be able to reach the VO2 max.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whereas we know that the lactate data that we get and where we can establish thresholds is reliable.
Yeah.
So you can have something that's, invalid and, unreliable, and you could probably still use it with a few fudge factors. But if something's unreliable and that is changing day to day and that day-to-day variation is large, you can't be confident in your interpretations of one prescription or two, whether a training phase or intervention has worked. So it needs to be reliable. The lactate profile we know is reliable because I've done reliability work on it for years and years and years. So I know within a quarter of a kilometer per hour is where fixed lactate concentrations of 2 and 4 millimole will occur, based upon all the hundreds of tests that we've done and the reliability work that we've done. So we know the variation is low, so we can be more confident. Plus we get training zones, we get perceptual responses, we get heart rate,
see what the trend of lactate accumulation is.
Yeah, and we can look at trends. Yeah, we can profile. If we've got a gas analyzer, that gives us a little bit more information as well, because then we can look at substrate utilization, we can look at energy expenditure, we can start to then look at economy as well, which is on a recent workshop that was almost like the word of the weekend, wasn't it? Is economy. And it's come up again 3 times already. Being economical with your data, being economical with your finances, and having an athlete that's economical as well. So going back to the Moxie, I've not seen anything or anyone yet, albeit I haven't been looking very closely, a way in which you could use that information to change the prescription of the intensity of exercise or the duration of an interval.
I like to have a look at it. I like to definitely have a look at it and see how we can influence the training, definitely.
So there are some things that we talked about before the podcast of how we might be able to use it to get an insight into some areas. But it would give us a good description of physiological responses that then might lead us to an explanation and prescription. But at the moment, the way that I see it is just a descriptive response, just an observation.
Okay, so next question is from Anton. What sports? Well, it's two questions here. It's said or, but we'll answer both for you, Anton. What sports with established strength and conditioning platforms outside of combat sports are you both inspired by when it comes to developing the boxing science, strength and conditioning methodologies? And also, what motivates you guys to do what you do within strength and conditioning for boxing?
So mine is a bit left field, as always. Don't worry, it's not about space or NASA or anything like that, or stopwatches from the 1800s. Mine is the Norwegian Olympic Institute, and specifically cross-country skiing, not just because that the Winter Olympics are on now, is because what they have done consistently over the last 20 years, probably even longer than that, is just produce some absolutely fantastic insight into how elite athletes train and win Olympic gold medals. So you might have heard us talk about the polarized approach to training before and how we use a reverse polarized approach. But that way of thinking came from these guys up in Norway, just asking the question, how do elite athletes actually train to win these medals? And they're able to answer the question because they have established a really good method for just taking basic training information. So all their top athletes will complete a training diary. So every day. And so they're able to look into just the basics, but also heart rate data, speed data, power data, all that kind of information that then they can use. That the importance of that information is just aggregated over time, isn't it? And then they can use that information to answer these really basic questions. And so that has formed my philosophy into tracking, collecting data and making decisions based upon that data. So that's where I look to outside of combat sports.
I think like just what you're saying then about like taking as much data as possible. I think that is something that we do at Boxing Science. I never realised that's probably the reason why. Like when we did the testing battery and you were getting me to do more whatever regressions on SPSS, and I was like hating you because I was just like, I just wanted to get this done, and you were just getting me to run like different correlations with Mebel Punch. The thing is, the amount of data that we had and the different correlations that we could create and analyze has actually influenced a lot of our training. Something that we've obviously talked about earlier on in the podcast. Stuff with the trunk muscle mass being the strongest contributor to a punch, fat-free mass as well, and obviously jump height as well. And these are things that I wouldn't have looked into if it wasn't for you. I'd have just gone, yeah, these are the standards for for amateur boxers, and that's it. So yeah, collecting as much data, and if you collect the data, then you can do a lot more with it. We're just having this with Tommy at the moment. Like, I've got loads of GymAware data over the past year that I haven't even looked into, but now we've got it on the GymAware cloud. I've just said to Tommy, fill your boots, son. you go and analyze all this. But it's the actual recording of the data, so we can look back at past performances, different trends, different exercise types, different set types as well. Difference between doing 5 reps and doing cluster sets and stuff like that. So yeah, collecting as much data as you can, even though you can't analyze it only that day, only that week or month or whatever. But as long as you've got the speeds, the heart rates, the lactates, the lifting velocities recorded, then you can always go back into it. And I think that's a vital thing. And especially when we're training so much. So we've got just a huge backlog of data. So yeah, that for me, like, you being influenced by that has influenced myself.
Yeah.
I'm going to cheat on this because you can't say not combat sports, and trying to look at like what inspires us. And even though they're quite new, relatively new, UFC Performance Institute, what they have done within the last 4.5-5 years is fantastic. The data that they're collecting, and the sport is so chaotic, and there's so many different outcomes, and there's so many different athlete types and everything. But as long as you've got the data there, that will influence what you do with that certain athlete and everything. So I think UFC Performance Institute, 100% inspired by them. When we were putting together the Boxing Science Performance Centre, we had the mindset of making it into a mini Performance Institute with the heated infrared sauna blankets, looking for like the more affordable way of doing it. We haven't got forced platforms, so we've got some weighing scales instead. When we do the isometrics, we've got a portable dynamometer. So we're trying to emulate the UFC Performance Institute on a much smaller budget, a lot smaller scale, but that is a massive influence. In a few years' time, I'd love to have a bigger facility where we've got everything under one roof for the boxers that want to engage with the boxing science program. Nutritionists, we've got Lee Rickards here now. We didn't have that before. Worked with a few of our boxers, but wasn't as active, kind of present, and not working with as many boxers as he's doing now. It's been great to have him involved and approaching everything with that multidisciplinary team. It makes it a lot easier. We've had physios come into this facility. We wanted to get something a little bit more permanent, a little bit more regular as well. But having the physios come in and having discussions with the physios, most of the boxers go to sports masseurs, chiropractors, and you never hear what is going on with the athlete and what they actually need to do. And you'll get it broken down, Chinese whispers, the worst kind of Chinese whispers ever, going from a professional saying probably some scientific and some complicated stuff, saying it to a boxer, and then that boxer having to say it to you what they actually need to do, is the worst game of Chinese whispers ever. And yeah, just having everything under one roof, I think that's the goal. And that's something that the UFC Performance Institute, obviously they've got unlimited budget. Well, they've got a limited budget, sorry. They've got seems unlimited.
They've got a big one.
They've got a big one. But you still need the great guys like Duncan and Forrest Griffin to guide that in the right direction, to make sure that budget is used wisely, and there's a fantastic system in place. You know, I'd love to get out there and actually see what they do on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, that's something that I'm definitely inspired by.
So you've touched on, you said one key word just at the end there, and it's system.
Yeah.
So we've got a thing on our wall that says master the things that take no talent.
Yeah.
What they have done incredibly well is, yes, aggregated these fantastic facilities. Yes, got the individuals there who are, you know, PhDs, great minds, lots of experience in combat sports. But they've also created processes and systems and ways of working, and they have their methods. Not just that it becomes a top down or bottom up approach to information acquisition and knowledge transfer and communication, where people quite often work in silos, but it becomes very interdisciplinary. So everyone has the opportunity to communicate with everyone else to solve those big problems. Otherwise, you just get, like you say, it's like Chinese whispers. It's like when my grandma goes to the doctors and she comes back and she says she's got the worst condition ever. And they haven't said that at all. And that's what you get, especially in combat sports. You can get that. Those people working in silos. And sometimes you can get people working to protect their own income as well. So they might say one thing to the boxer that ensures they have to keep coming back and keep coming back, keep coming back. That might not be in the best interest of the boxer. It's just in the best interest of their business. When you've got an interdisciplinary team that's all working with a shared goal to improve the health and performance of that athlete, and those lines of communication are clear, and you've got a clear strategy, you've got a clear process, the systems are clear, that's when the magic starts to happen. And taking time to understand that doesn't take any talent. Putting those systems in place doesn't take any talent. So that's what they've done fantastically well in, like I say, a very complex and chaotic sport. Systems, processes,
in a very
strategies.
short amount of time. And when we talked to Forrest Griffin on the podcast episode, don't know, a few episodes back, just go back, it's about November 2020 when we did it. And we talked to him and we asked like kind of how the UFC Performance Institute came about. And he literally went out to all the best sports science facilities, best teams. He went to Man City, went to a couple of other Premier League clubs. He went to NFL teams, NHL teams, went to some colleges and stuff like that in America, and just went around the best facilities and took the best things. So it's very easy for us to say UFC Performance Institute because there is a direct kind of comparison that we can make on a small scale. But how can you not be inspired by them when they've literally gone out, took out the best of everything and put it together, and the stuff that they've done within a relatively short amount of time is unbelievable. Another thing that I'm going to mention, and it's to my former colleagues at England Golf. If you don't know, I worked at England Golf for 6 years, just under 6 years. I was a regional strength and conditioning coach, and their system is something that I want to replicate in boxing for youth sport. So basically it was 8 to 10 regional coaches. So I was obviously the Yorkshire regional coach, and each coach has access to the boys and the girls. They have 10 days of contact, and they can use that 10 days whatever way that they want, whether that's doing strength and conditioning sessions, whether that's attending squad days, doing testing, doing analysis with a golf coach and stuff like that. But it means that all the younger athletes, so they were all about under 16, ranging from 11 to 16 years old, and they had access to professional strength and conditioning coaches from a young age, but these have met some sort of criteria to be in the talent pool for England Golf. So these have showed talent that they might end up representing England Golf, whether that's under 16, under 18, or within the first team as well. And for me, I want to do that with boxing. It's always been a goal of mine to have regional hubs and to have an impact on the long-term delivery of strength and conditioning in boxing. And I think that having these regional hubs around the country, I think that it'd be something to make sure that younger athletes are getting the right training for athletic development alongside their technical development as well.
Yep.
When we started in 2014, one of the key things that we said was that younger athletes don't get strength and conditioning until they reach GB boxing. And the squad was around about 12 amateur boxers at that time. GB boxing has got a lot bigger now. So they've got over about 20.
About 50, aren't they, in the whole program?
I think 20 to 30, I think. I think they basically they have 2 or 3 in each weight category. So about 20 or 30. But then England boxing doing a little bit more in strength and conditioning, but it's still, there is stuff there. And if you compare boxing with football, where you've got probably people that aren't going to be representing England or in that talent pool, but they're at the academies, they're getting some sort of strength and conditioning. I was at Sheffield United from 2011 to 2014. 2011, there was in the League One. So that's if people don't know League One, that's the third tier of English football. And they had strength and conditioning for under 8 footballers. And some of them start turning pro. I'm seeing some that have turned professional
really?
At 16, 17. And I'm thinking they'd have been that little kid just running around with a little size 3 football just stuck to the field. And I'm just how much control they got. But that's kind of level. Sheffield United got a fantastic academy, but they was in the third tier of English football, and they still had strength and conditioning for under 8s. Now we're talking about boxers that are maybe winning national titles, maybe representing England at a youth level or junior level, that probably haven't done any testing, not done any kind of maturation assessments or monitoring, not done like strength and conditioning or anything like that. And then in the long term, it's like where they're going to be when they are representing England boxing at a senior level, representing GB boxing as well. So it's something that we want to help and engage with the amateur boxing scene, and that's what we're doing with the Youth Athlete Initiative. We've set up 3 already. What is it? 9th of February. 9th of February. So we're 6 weeks in. We've done 3 or 4 Youth Athlete Initiative workshops. One in Northeast, where we had 30 boxers. And then just this weekend just gone, went to Yorkshire Boxing, and we tested 80 boxers. And this is all funded by Boxing Science to get the data, to give them some feedback, to get them more engaged with strength and conditioning, and make it seem like more accessible. And that's the key thing. That's something that we talked with Tommy and Kian yesterday, is they might see the pros training and think, oh, I'd love to train like that, but not know how to get involved. And there's many ways of getting involved. Yeah, you can get a program, but it's like they might not have that confidence to be able to do that program themselves. But it's like there's going to be more avenues. So this start of the Youth Athlete Initiative, doing these regional squad sessions, might be the start of creating something a little bit like England Golf, and they've done a fantastic job over. I think they've been doing it for probably about 10 years now. I came in quite early into the program, 2014, and some of the players that I dealt with have gone on to represent England Golf at senior level. Gone to colleges in America and got scholarships and stuff like that. They
turn pro as well, like on the European tour or PGA. Or they're at that age now, aren't they?
They're getting to that age, but I think they're still at college at the minute. But that when you get in a scholarship for a college in America, you know that you're pretty good. Yeah. So that it's showing that system works, and I love to be able to replicate that in boxing somehow. Yeah. But yeah, I think there is a scope to be able to do it. I think in England boxing we have worked with them in the past. They are wanting to get more strength. I've been there where they've had a nutritionist there, physio there, strength and conditioning coach there. But it's so hard because it is developing. There is funding things and stuff like that. So that's the reason why we're doing the Youth Athlete Initiative, because we want to start building it now. and fund it ourselves. Because if we were just waiting for somebody to come in with a massive pot of money to help us get this off the ground, it's not going to happen. We've tried to get funding things before. We've to strength and conditioning bodies, to national lottery, to loads of different things, and it's like we're not getting the funding. So how can we do it? We've got Tommy, we've got Kian, we've got Kieran, our intern, that are willing to give their time and start collecting data, start giving them feedback, start doing some workshops on plyometrics, core training, how to integrate the boxing science training methods in a very simple way into the gyms, and then show them like kind of there is different ways that you can get involved if you want to get involved. If you want to bring a team down for testing, a training day, if you want in a remote program where we're contacting you on WhatsApp, there are different ways that boxing science can help you get the most out of your physical training.
So I think you've raised 2 points there. One, I think you've answered the second part of the question. Well, at least partly, anyway, in terms of what motivates you and what do you want to achieve. And it is literally grassroots from the ground up. It's not all glitz and the glamour, is it?
No.
You've been
don't want to be accused of that.
You've been to tens, if not hundreds, of amateur shows. Put in a load of groundwork in amateur clubs, gone around the country working with amateurs as well, and understand that these young athletes are the future of boxing, and also the future of the country as well. And so not only if we can show them how to train, but also if we can pass on some positive messages around how to stay healthy, how to eat well, how to look after yourself.
It's like nutrition. It's a massive thing.
Massive.
Because we looked at some research where it's like the basically the knowledge of nutrition is pretty low. In amateur boxing. When they're having to make weight, over 80% are making the choice to have like extreme weight cutting methods and like dehydration and everything like that. And it's to get out there to go in with training first and then kind of guide them down a funnel of this nutrition, this psychology. There's loads of different aspects to sports science.
Not all of these young athletes are going to turn into world champions.
No.
But a lot of them will hopefully be able to turn into responsible members of society and make good decisions. And if we can help show them, even if it's in a tiny way, even if it's just like, for one day, they might be then looking at us on social media and acting as role models by proxy almost through that, then I think that's really important. So that having that approach to developing young amateur boxers and having that motivation to try and improve the quality of support that they receive, I think is really is a really good thing. And the other thing you said at the end there, which is another good message, is that you can't just wait around for things to happen.
Gotta go.
Sometimes you've got to take things by the scruff of the neck
take ownership
and make it happen. And take ownership. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It doesn't mean you should stop.
No.
How many times have we tried to get the Youth Athlete Initiative up and running consistently? We've probably tried 2 or 3 times to do it. And other things take priority, but we always keep going back to it and try and keep getting it up and running. And we learn from previous iterations of it and make improvements and go again. But we can't wait around for people to come and give you a nice check and say, oh, there you go, there's some money for your time, and go out and do that. Sometimes you just got to do it yourself.
I feel like it's for us, it's giving back to boxing. We're in a very fortunate position now. And if it wasn't for working in boxing, working with boxers, we wouldn't be in the position that we are in now. So I'd love to give more back to grassroots, with time and obviously programs and and delivery and everything like that. And I think that the Youth Athlete Initiative is really important to us and to the future of boxing science and to the future of boxing. So mainly the motivation for boxing science was to have an impact on boxing and the delivery of sports science to elevate the training standards of boxing. And I feel that comes across quite strongly in our social media presence, doing stuff like this, spending what should be my day off, doing a podcast to talk more about training, putting out loads of free content out there. We could train all these pros, do a load of kind of social media propaganda, and put high ticket price on everything that we do. But we make sure that we have stuff that seem quite expensive to some people, such as the testing, such as the consultancy and everything like that. But that's there for people that do want to engage to that level and do have that budget. But we also have an option where we've got free or very low cost online stuff that can help them improve their training methods and improve their physical performance. And with the Youth Athlete Initiative, I think we have had a few good goes at it. We've learned a lot about what to do and what not to do, what works, what doesn't work. But I feel like this next one now, 2022, I'm really, really excited for it. And Tommy and Kian leading that as well. They've got a lot of time to give to that and a lot of enthusiasm. And I can't wait to see what they do. Like I said, 6 weeks in, 4 sessions, 4 workshops, and we've tested doing over 150 boxes. So unbelievable. And
from a selfish perspective, my motivation is to become a better sports scientist.
Yeah.
But I can only become a better sports scientist if I've got the athletes to work with and my mates to work with as well.
Yeah.
So if I didn't have you guys, if I didn't have the boxers, then how would I get better?
Yeah.
All I'd be doing is spending my time in a book, just
reading about the origins of stopwatches.
Well, I'll do that anyway.
Yeah.
But so there's a lot of respect that you need to make to, and there's a lot of thanks that you have to give to be a sport scientist, because you need people to help you along the way. You need athletes to give 110% every session to be able for you to gain the insight into what you're doing.
Yeah.
And to understand how it's working.
Yeah.
For then you to get better because of that.
Once got told by an athlete, the coach is only as good as the athlete is.
Yeah, exactly.
And you only get recognised for the amount of effort that an athlete puts in. Another athlete said to me, it's your job to get me fit. And I was just like, no, it's your job. You've got to put in the work. I've this blueprint to elite performance, which is on the wall, that's there for everyone. It's about the effort.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have the reputation, the research, the massive amounts of data that we've got if it weren't for the athletes giving 100% every time.
Yeah.
Them athletes that we mentioned earlier, Terry Harper, Lerone Richards, Jordan Gill, Hopi Price, Stephen Cairns, that are all fantastic athletes and they're all making fantastic improvements, but they're mastering the things that take no talent on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I think that is the best kind of outro to a podcast. And I think we should just leave it there. We've got loads more questions, but I think we've spent about half an hour on Anton's questions. So I hope you appreciate that, mate. So yeah, thanks, Alan. I think we need to do another Q&A session because we've got another 6 questions to answer. So thanks everyone. Thanks, Alan, for your time. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks to those that have sent in questions. And if you've got any more questions that you want to fire over to the Boxing Science podcast, we're going to do this on a more regular basis now. Please contact us across social media at Boxing Science on Instagram or at Wilson_Boxing Science. So if it's too complicated for me, go and message Alan at Ruddock_Boxing Science. or at Red Zone Running. So many Instagram pages. If you're not on Instagram, you can send me an email, dannywilson@boxingscience.co.uk. And whilst I'm asking you to do stuff, if you would like to hit a like, a subscribe, or even give us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And then if you haven't checked out our partners, Saga Fitness, specialists in blood flow restriction training, you can check out the link in the description and you can get your hands on their BFL cuffs with a 10% discount using our discount code Boxing Science. Okay, guys, thank you very much for listening to the Boxing Science podcast. I hope to see you on the next episode.